everybody. Welcome back to Go Beyond the Hustle, the podcast.
The conversation that we want to have today is talking about hitting rewind. It's about the hurdles that come to mind when we think back over the 27 years that we have been doing this as a team and sharing how we overcame, what we learned from it all.
So we're going to go back to when we first started and go over some experiences, some trials, some tribulations that we went through that may help you, the salesman, the significant other out there, see if some things like what we're going to talk about correlate with what you've been going through.
Absolutely.
So, Tiffany, why don't you talk about, I'll never forget this, the first time we went to a dinner and one of the owners of the company came up to you and he said something to you that stuck with you for 27 years. What was that?
It was with the first company that you worked for as a sales rep. And it was one of the owners.
Yep.
And it was at the Christmas party. It was our very first Christmas party. And you had started working for the company. It would have been after graduation. So in the late summer. And
Yep.
so you hadn't been there that long. Had started getting the hang of it a little bit, seeing that it might be a feasible thing for you to do. And by Christmas party, though, you would have already decided that you weren't going to be a teacher that year. And I think that's how we eased into it, is we were going to give it a year. Like we were just like, you were still going to go be a teacher, but maybe you were just going to do this for a little while.
Well, let me stop you right there real quick. I think the reason that I made that decision, or we made that decision, was the fact that when I first started, nobody told me that my cap outs, my pay
Right.
was going to be not right away.
Absolutely. So back then, and still today to some extent, sales reps were 1099. So what that means is that there is no guaranteed income. $0 of guaranteed income. You either sink or you swim.
I mean, and we'd go out and we would do the job, sign the job up, get the draw, build the roof, do the job, and then we'd have to wait for the depreciation to come through. So normal job was you're waiting a couple months before you would actually cap out that job,
Absolutely.
Which I didn't understand as a 20-year-old kid just getting out of college. I didn't understand the process of how you got paid.
Right. And
I just knew you got paid, just didn't understand how.
The spouse who handles the finances at home, we should head this up.
Yeah.
That was very hard, is realizing that, because you didn't know that and I didn't know that. And I was still working a regular full-time job, probably a full-time and a part-time job, to be honest. And we were expecting you to be a teacher and have an income, have a salary. And all of a sudden you're doing a sales job, but the pay structure is not typical. And we had never experienced anything like that before. So I'm saying to Dan, do you have a paycheck?
The money?
Do you have a paycheck? Because he was calling and telling me, I signed one up. I've got this one. And so in my head, not knowing any differently, I'm thinking, okay, so there's going to be a paycheck.
Yeah.
And when you are a 1099, there is no paycheck for weeks and weeks, maybe months. And over the winter, maybe none. And so we were very new to that. We didn't know anything about it. That was extremely difficult. That was a lot of fights because all of a sudden, this is where I was. I am at our home, at our apartment. I am living. I am working a job or two. I am paying all of the bills. He packed up a car. He is living in a hotel. He is staying with other sales reps. He's going out. He's telling me that he's signing and that things are going great and he's figuring it out. But there are zero paychecks. And as we didn't have any savings, we had no money, zero money. And so all of a sudden, the full financial weight of our lives fell directly on my shoulders. And that was not planned. We did not expect that. And that was very, very hard.
Well, and I knew that I was doing good. I was doing well out there. But every Friday would come and I wouldn't get a check. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the road, I'd start to get a $250 check.
Right, because that's
a
draw.
$100 check. And
right,
I'm like,
whatever it is.
Okay. But like the actual money wasn't coming. And I agree. I think at the beginning, that was a huge fight that we had.
Over and over.
And I know that, part of it was me keeping you out of what I was doing.
Yes.
But also, I didn't want you to know because I knew I was doing well out there.
Right.
but it was hard for me to facilitate that back to you and be like, but
I am really
doing
well,
good.
but I'm not making any money.
Yeah.
That's essentially what you had to say.
And that hence was the reason I wanted to quit, because I was like, well, maybe I'm not doing well.
Right. And
Maybe
I'm
I'm
at
not
home
doing good.
working and paying all of the bills. And that was not the deal.
Yep.
I'm like, wait a minute. No. That's not how my life's going to go. I'm not just paying all of the bills and you're out doing whatever you're doing. There was a huge communication lesson we had yet to learn.
Oh, yeah?
So that, I think, would be our first hurdle straight off the bat. Anytime you're in sales, even if you're a base salary plus commissions or plus incentives, to start off, you don't have the pipeline. You don't have the history in your job where you don't have anything coming in that was from 3 weeks ago or 2 months ago. And I think that a lot of people experience that. And on your end, there's so much frustration. And I can speak, which is the point of us having a podcast together, is I am the voice saying from the support person, the spouse's viewpoint, I was angry. I was frustrated. I was scared, and you were traveling. And so we weren't seeing each other all the time, but I was the only one paying the bills.
I think
that was hard.
I think that made me what I am today. Is the fact that understanding and knowing that I wasn't supporting my family. I wasn't taking care of the bills and things back at home. And I was traveling. I mean, I literally was up at 6 o'clock every morning, knocking doors, hanging flyers, being out at the job sites.
Doing the hustle.
Going through the hustle, understanding and knowing that I have to do this. I do not have a choice.
Right, because you don't have, it's been 3 weeks and there has been not a paycheck, and you know I'm not happy at home.
Right.
Paying all the bills, working a couple jobs.
Right. And I think it was a month or so, and I got my first cap out, and I got that check.
Draws came through.
Well, draws.
Yes,
but
draws.
I mean, like the first actual cap out check.
Right.
That we came through, and it was a...
I'm laughing because I remember.
It was a $1,500 or $2,000 check, and it was... Guys, you got to remember back then, our average roof was $6,000 to $8,000. So
right.
a cap out check, I was ecstatic to get $600 or $800, right? So we put 2 or 3 of those together, and we got an $1,800 check. And for us, $1,800 at that time was a lot of money.
It was amazing.
And when I remember, I'll never forget, Tiffany said I'm going to go to the bank and cash it right away. She wanted to see if it cleared.
I worked at the bank.
Okay.
So I worked at the bank, and I remember no checks, and then maybe a small check with some draws.
$250, $500 at the most.
Still working, doing my thing. And the first time he got a check, first of all, it was like a little kid bringing their art project home. And I was so excited that there was a check. And the first thing I said when I saw it, because we went from almost nothing to at that time, wow, my paychecks didn't look like that. Yeah. So it was like, what is going on? And I said to him, I'm scared it's not going to cash.
Yep.
Now, Jim Johnson, I apologize. And he's heard it before, but I absolutely positively did not believe the check was going to cash, because you were working so hard.
Yeah.
But when the money did come through, it was good money.
Great money.
It seemed like the check wasn't going to cash. I'm just going to put it out there. So when I brought it to my financial, where I was the operations manager, I was so scared it was going to bounce back. And so when I deposited it into the account, I watched my account like a hawk for days, because it would have been humiliating, and it would have been a thing. And so I was so worried that check wasn't going to cash. And I watched it so closely, and it did. It cashed.
And I think that feeling of that first check going through helped me snowball.
Absolutely.
And keep it rolling, because then I started to understand, okay, this isn't a pipe dream. This isn't fake. This is real.
I started understanding, wait a minute. Okay, so it's going to be feast or famine. And that triggered me to start realizing I was going to need, as the one who paid the bills, to financially budget. And it's feast or famine. And so I had to be very careful with how I managed our finances. And then thinking ahead about winter.
I was just gonna touch on that, because
which is a whole nother thing.
That's a lot of times with the newer sales reps, they don't understand. They don't figure out that, especially in our climate, in our industry up where we're in Minnesota, Wisconsin, there's 4 or 5 months of the year where there's not a lot of work out there.
Right.
And what a lot of people failed is a lot of people would get those big checks and they would spend them right away.
Absolutely.
And they wouldn't save for the winter, in which you're trying to train these new people, especially a year, 2 years into the business, that you need to budget for your winter.
Absolutely.
With the money instead of just going out and spending it.
Right.
And that's
that's
obviously you're a lot
pitfall.
better at that than I was.
That's a whole nother pitfall. But going into your first winter, you don't have the backlog or the pipeline where once you get rolling, winters, there are still checks. Yeah. But your first one, you don't have a pipeline. And so it's very sparse. So that, I would say, was our very first hurdle straight out of the gates when it came to you suddenly not working a traditional 9 to 5 and going to 100% commission and being in the sales industry.
But the understanding that, okay, so here's my first cap out that had 3 jobs on it. I made almost $2,000. I've got 60 other jobs signed up. Right. And then figuring in our head, trying to do the math in our head. And I think that was the reason why I didn't go into coaching and teaching. Right. Because when I started figuring out, and Jim started telling me that, hey, you've got 60 in the pipeline for spring builds. Right. And I did the math. Well, I've already made 30-some thousand with just starting off in the spring.
Just hang on. Right.
If I just hang on over the winter.
Right.
So then I'm like, okay, well, let me give it one more year.
Yes.
And then we made it through that winter. I mean, we scraped a little bit, but we made it through that winter. We were fine. And then that next spring, when I had that pipeline of 30 to start or 40 to start, and then I got the understanding, okay, of those 30 or 40 that I had to start, if I do this the right way and I build my network and build my relationship up, because I'm always a people person, I can build another 30 or 40 off those 30 and 40.
Right.
And that's when I started realizing that, hey, it's not always about just pounding the doors. It's about pursuing that homeowner's best interest of how am I going to get that homeowner to work for me to get more homeowners off that homeowner.
Right.
And work the snowball effect, because I started understanding that if I can get one homeowner to get me 1 or 2 other homeowners, then we're going to talk about this, but that's where my 100 job checklist comes in. And that's where that whole process has evolved, is because I knew that if I could do 100 jobs in a year, that would be $1 million in revenue for the company. That would mean I make 6 digits a year. I'm $100,000 a year. I can do that. Right. But how am I going to get to do that?
Right. Strategy.
And this is something that was I believe that was one of the first conversations you and I had about this industry, is about that 100 job checklist, where we sat down and talked and said, Tiff, this is where I need to get to. If I can get 100 jobs, and I know that first spring when I was traveling, we moved down to Appleton.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that's a whole fun gamut. We'll get into that in a minute.
Mistakes were made. Absolutely.
But we understood that, hey, this is my guideline now. This is where, back to little D here, this is the dinosaur in me, is that I have to do everything on paper. And if I can see it and it's tangible, and to this day now, 27 years later, I still have that same sheet sitting in my truck, because I know I need to get 100 jobs. And that's just, for me, it's something tangible that I can see, that I can know, that I can hit, and that I can reach.
Right.
So I think that was a huge hurdle for us to go through that. And once I saw that,
right.
So we got through that winter.
If that didn't break us, right?
Yeah, right. So we got through that winter, and then spring came, and that's.
But we're digressing, because at the Christmas party,
getting
back to it, the next hurdle that came along was this owner, man, sat down at a table. Christmas party was happening. We were just thrilled, because we were kind of starting to figure things out. Weren't fully committed all the way yet to long term, but you knew you needed to hang on through spring, because you knew how many jobs were in your pipeline that you hadn't been paid on yet. So,
and I wanted full commission on them.
You want full commission. So we knew that you were going to stay through, let's say, the end of the school year, if you will. And then we didn't know what you were going to do. Correct. He sat at a table. I don't remember his name. I don't remember anything about him except the words that he said to me. He told me, he was like, so you're new, da-da-da-da-da. And we were like, yep, we don't know what we're doing. And he said, let me tell you something about this industry. He said, if you're going to be in roofing, get in, make your money, and get out. And that was it. That's what he said. And then he turned, and that was the end of the conversation.
You never told me that for years.
It startled me. It intrigued me. I just very much internalized that. And I thought, okay, all right. So it made me, how can I say this? I wanted to strategize. I felt like I'm like, okay, so I have a limited amount of time. Okay, this could be really good, but I need to, there was a sense of urgency is what he created in my world. And so I took that and I internalized that as financially, I needed to hoard all the money I possibly could, honestly, because you get in, you make your money, you get out. So I thought to myself, well, then you're not going to be in for very long because here, this is an owner of the company. He knows more than I do. So I need to keep all of the money he makes, get every penny that he makes so that when he gets out and goes to being a teacher, we are better for it. Yeah. And so that to this day, I retain it now. I laugh and somewhere out there he is. And I would like to argue that fact 27 years later that I do not agree with you. But I think it was good advice for a very young set of kiddos that were just trying to figure it out. Yeah. It's like, okay, get in, make your money, get out. But that is the opposite of what you actually teach now because you talk about a career mindset, not a job.
Agreed.
And he was saying to me, get in, make your money, get out. Things change too fast. It's a job. Just do what you can do. And we actually ended up doing the opposite of that.
Agreed. I mean, one of the first things I was ever told is in this business, it is very hard to trust anybody. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you don't like to think that, but in reality, it's true.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of people that are willing to step on you to move ahead.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that completely defeats the purpose of being a good human.
Right.
You know, and what we talk about and what we're going to discuss in our podcast are the fact that we're about being a good human. We're about pursuing everyone's best interest, not just yours.
Right.
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 And yeah, I mean, it's completely, and what I teach and what I coach now out there is the fact that having that job mindset in this business is very difficult to be that elite level sales rep because it isn't a career mind, right? Your career mind is you're pursuing the best interests of not only yourself, but everybody around you.
Right.
The job mindset is you're pursuing the best interests of yourself.
Right.
And if you have that mindset of, hey, it's all about me, it's all about the paycheck, you're not willing to play the long game.
Right. Right.
You know, and that's I'm excited to talk and on these podcasts about that because that is such a mind shift that we need to train and teach the newer sales reps and the people that's the attitude we need in this business. And with us discussing from our past to our present, I mean, that's why we're going to be on these doing a lot of podcasts because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. is that, I mean, it's going to keep coming back to that one situation. And, you know, like go back to that spring we started off. I mean, there was so many fun little stuff that happened that spring. Like my first time ever meeting insurance adjusters, you know, and our first taste of ever insurance. I know you like a funny little story about an adjuster and I'll remember his name, Richard Harrison. Remember?
Yes.
Richard Ayub.
Oh,
the first time I met my insurance adjuster buddies, I didn't have any idea. He trained me on a roof real quick. One of my first roofs I ever got on. I mean, this hail damage was perfect on this roof. It was 2.5-inch hail. As good as hail's going to be. First words out of his mouth when I get on the roof. First adjuster I ever met, he looked right at me and said, "There's no hail up here. What am I looking at?"
And I
was so startled.
That was like, just a flex of Harrison Ayub, if you're out there, we love you. Haven't seen you in ages, but that was a flex that I would say you would definitely do now, where you see this kid terrified. You can tell
I was terrified.
He doesn't know what he's doing. He's nervous. He's up on this roof just flexing and putting him on the spot and seeing if he crumbles. And
I did. I crumbled out there because I was like, I, you know, and he looked right at me and said, "You're new, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "There's plenty of hail up here." And then for some reason, I don't know what it was, he took a liking to me. And then this was back in the olden days when we got to get to know the insurance adjusters really well. Yes,
and those two adjusters specifically that summer took you under their wing.
They trained me a lot.
And they are part of the reason of how he is who he is right now. And I actually remind Dan of that before he goes on stage, before he speaks. I want you to think about, and I have many words of wisdom for you right before you go on stage, but
you don't want to share the one you always tell me?
No. But we'll leave that edited out. But I always remind Dan, remember where you came from. Remember who made you. You are a product of so many amazing humans that had mercy on you, that took time to teach you, that took you under their wing and showed you their computer screen or the way they do something, or this is what you did wrong. And you are a Frankenstein roofing monster of so many kind humans that just took a little bit of time for this kiddo who I don't even think he could grow a beard back then, and gave a little bit of time, and it made you who you are.
Correct.
And so I like to remind him, you're going on stage and you're honoring all of those people that made you who you are. So don't mess it up.
Yeah.
There, that's the nice way of saying it. That's the nice way of saying it.
Well, and I think every time I go on stage, that's the mindset I have, is if I can reach out and I can grab just a few of those newer sales reps or a few of those people and just give them some nuggets or some advice that I have in 27 years that they can take and they can take back and they can use.
Right.
Then I feel that I'm not only pleasing myself, but I'm honoring those people that helped teach me when I first started. Because if it wasn't for those people that helped me when I first started, I don't know where I would have been.
Right.
You know
and I feel like you giving that information out and you hopefully inspiring some of the newer reps, the younger generation, if you can help create more honorable humans that are in this industry doing the right thing, we are making an impact on the industry. We're making an impact in the world, because you're going to do right by other people. You're going to make the right choices. You're going to invest in your community. You're going to volunteer. And that just makes the world a better place because you're learning to be. So we want to thank everyone for paying attention to this podcast, for tuning in. I hope that you share it with your significant other, with your assistant, with anyone around you that helps you get through the process of being not a 9-to-5. We hope we inspire some conversations out there, and we normalize what it's like to go through these things. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It is not easy to do. We want to pull the curtain back and show you what we've been through, experiences we've had, and what we've learned along the way. If you would like to follow us, we're on all the socials, I'm told. And Dan also has a monthly class at gobeyondthehustle.com where you can sign up, submit questions, and have an hour or so of time once a month where you get mentored and coached by Dan himself. Above all, we just want to remind everyone to be a good human.